one of the simplest, but also most effective tools that I've found to not only build a meaningful life, but build a sense of fearlessness in yourself is death. It's your mortality and the mortality of those that you love. And it's effective because it forces the consideration of not having more time, either for you to not have more time in this life or for the people that you love to not have more time, and thus you don't get more time with them. It forces you to consider what actually matters. And I've been probably using this for the last 2 decades. Like since 10, I've been trying to figure out what a meaningful life means, what purpose means, how to live in a more aligned way. But at 10, I understood that as just happiness. How do I feel more joy in my life? And I'm 42 now, so it's been 32 years. But the last 20 have included considerations about death. And in utilizing that over the last 20 years, it's helped me get dream jobs, go after things that most people would probably be quite scared of, go after seemingly blowing up very comfortable and successful situations to pursue something that felt better, more aligned, more me. And the trust in those decisions certainly comes from ourselves, but there's a lot of ways that we come to our decisions. We're trying to weigh sometimes pros and cons, good and bad. How does this align to our future? And our mortality is one of those things that brings a lot of things into focus. But I'll use it from something super small, like do I buy that ham and cheese croissant that looks really fucking good, even though I'm not that hungry, but I really want it, and I don't know when I'll be by this bakery again, and who knows, I may never be by this bakery again. And if I'm in a foreign country, well, I'm only in a foreign country. Who knows how many times in my entire life, if ever again, should I try it? To much bigger things like, do I stay in this 5-year relationship? Do I leave this job that I thought was my dream job? Do I move from the place that I grew up in and know I love like deep down, but not sure it's quite for me anymore? Do I leave the corporate world where there's seemingly benefits and security and, financial safety, even though there isn't always, to go create your own thing? Do you go against the grain of what best practices and, advice from experts are that have proven that things work over time and time again to try and do it your own way? Like all of these questions prompt a lot of scenario planning. What ifs? Should I? What's best? What's right? What's wrong? And I find that mortality reflections, or broadly speaking, let's just call them fear reflections, it allows us to build a level of comfort with something that might be really uncomfortable. Death is really uncomfortable for a lot of people to consider. I find a lot of kind of joy and liberation in thinking about death because it frees it at this point in life, given how long I've been doing it, it frees me up from the fear of it. Doesn't mean I want to die. It doesn't mean I don't want many more years on this planet to try so many things that I didn't get to try. However, what it frees me up is from the stress and anxiety of worrying about, well, what is going to happen? Did I live with regrets? Did I not do things that I wish I had done? Did I make the right choices? And when you feel that each choice that you make, whether it is about a ham and cheese croissant or whether it is about ending a long-term marriage when there are kids and assets, it is the comfort with navigating some of the things that you might fear the most. And by doing these reflections on a regular basis, when you are not actually facing the fear, helps you build a level of comfort with the fear, a level of comfort with the discomfort. There is this idea of treating your fear almost as if it's, this living being. How can you exist with it? How can you kind of sit next to it and say, I'm afraid of you, but you're here. You're clearly in my mind. You're clearly in my life, showing up in my life in some way. How do we make this manageable? How can we coexist? How can we even maybe find some solace in each other? How can we get comfortable to the point where I'm totally okay that you're here? If anything, I invite you in. Come into my life. Because you're just a thought anyway, right? Because until a real fear manifests and becomes reality, it's not a real thing. It's something that we're concerned with up here, but it's not existing in this space yet. And so much of our anxiety and stress comes around thinking how we can mitigate it, how we can avoid it, how we can sidestep the fear so that it doesn't impact us. But it's already impacting us mentally. So the practice is, how do you build such comfort with your fear that you become fearless, right? And again, not that the fear goes away, but you become fearless in your ability to navigate anything because you've built a rapport with the things that you most fear. And I'll just use death as the example, because that's something that many of us fear. But the more often you think about your own death, your own mortality, the truest thing in humanity, that every single one of us will die, that time is limited and you don't know when that is. Are you living every day? Are you taking every moment? Are you aligning your action to what you say matters to you? And death gives you that really confronting lens through which you can evaluate, if I die tomorrow, did I live well today? And if not, and I've still got some time in this day, even if it's 30 minutes, how can I make sure that today was worth it? Do you call a loved one? Do you take a bath? Do you eat that cookie or go buy yourself that ham and cheese croissant? Do you, I don't know, give yourself a little at-home mask and pampering session? There are little ways that we can tune into what we need in our lives, and considering our fears and our death is one of them. On a macro level, if you're facing some major decision or debating whether to take a risk or wanting to go after something but afraid of what happens if it goes wrong, mortality reflections are really valuable for that, because it helps you consider, will I regret it if I don't do it? What would life be like if I take this path? Will I always wonder about that one? Do I think the potential here can lead me towards a life that I'm super excited by, even if I only have a day or two? And if I knew I only had that day or two, would I take this? Because if not, maybe I take that. And checking in with it regularly, like I said, sometimes I'll check in on it multiple times a day. And if not my own, sometimes it's someone else's. If I'm concerned about them, someone's unhealthy, or even if your parents are just aging, right? They're getting older. You are starting to see and be reminded of how little time you have left with them. And building that comfort with discomfort, comfort with fear, comfort with death, comfort with uncertainty. You get comfortable with you existing with that, you navigating that. Because the more you reflect on it, the more you can start to feel what it would be like if it were to actually happen. What actions would you take? How would you feel? What will you miss about your own life or someone else's? And as you get those things, as you get that clarity, you can start to do things that help you regret that a little less, use that time a little bit better, not wish that you had more time because you took the time that you had. Well, you may always wish you wanted more time, but I think you know what I mean. Not that you didn't waste time, right? And you can start to take action today. That brings you closer to that. And by thinking about death, by thinking about our greatest fears, we also shorten the timeline that we think we have when we don't know how long it is, right? It could be an hour. It could be a day. It could be a year. It could be 10. And when we think about, when we bring death closer to us, to this timeline that we currently exist in, it brings it closer to us for us to really feel the impact of having that compressed timeline, that one day, that week, that year. And sometimes it shifts the fear around the what if it goes wrong? Well, so what if it goes wrong? You may only have the month or the year. Do it anyway. And so even if there's no action you're trying to take or decide or major life upheaval that you're navigating, probably that's the ideal time to be doing this because there's nothing pressing on you in reality. You get to have life be kind of settled while you consider, okay, what am I afraid of? What does my concern about my own mortality feel like? How can I try to take more aligned action, make choices that bring me closer to the ideals of my life, to the way you want to live, to the relationships you want to have, the time you want to honor? And in that practice, you become less and less scared of the unknown, the uncertainty, because you get to put words to it. Because when fear is just this thing that you're like, oh, I don't like fear, I don't like it, I'm going to put it over there, sit in the corner, I'm going to go look over here and go do this thing over here. When you name it, when you detail it, when you give it shape, when you say it is explicitly these things. I am afraid of not making money. I am afraid of not being a provider. I am afraid of not being worthy of love. I am afraid of not having more time with my parents. I am afraid of dying. You give it explicit shape. So it's not just this amorphous unknown, this shadow of a thing that you're just avoiding. And the more explicit it is, the more tangible you can exist, more tangibly you can exist with it. The more you can acknowledge its presence, the more you can diffuse the mystery around it. And the more that you can exist with a tangible presence, the more familiar it'll be, the less scary, the less unknown. And even if you can't imagine it exactly how it's going to play out, since there's no way, the familiarity and the comfort that you build with it is what gives you the freedom to detach from the fear of it, to move away from the stress and the anxiety of what if, because you can imagine the what ifs. You've done some mental exercises to think about, okay, what if your parents die? What are you going to do? How are you going to navigate the administration? How much is it going to cost? You've maybe imagined some of these things. Whether you visualized it, whether you wrote it down, you've created more reality around it. And realities are things that we can more tangibly deal with. Again, versus that amorphous, vague unknown. And then you can have tea with it, as the Buddhists say. Have tea with your fear. And it creates more calm and peace in your own life because you're not driven by these unknown anxieties, these unknown pressures that just weigh on us. Because when we acknowledge it and we can name it, we can diffuse some of the power that it has over us. And we get to reclaim some of that in our own power, in our own courage, in our own fearlessness. That we will navigate it, that you can coexist with this scary thing and you will figure it out. You are a human with lots of great skills and abilities. You're a human with great intelligence, self-intelligence, intuition, instinct. And it also gives you the space to learn how to trust yourself. Because if your body and your mind, your heart are not so oriented around the stress and anxiety and fear of these things over here that you're avoiding, you build more trust in your ability to deal with shit. Because you will have less anxiety, you will have more peace, you will have more calm, you will have less fear, you will have more trust. Because you've walked out some of the possibilities. And you can say to yourself, okay, this may happen, I might do this, I might do this, I might do this. And it might be still really fucking stressful when shit hits the fan, but you can deal with the real stress when real shit hits the real fan. Before then, it's all just up here. But I recognize that what's up here feels very real. And we have to deal with it. Which is why mortality reflections have been one of my best friends. Throughout the day, throughout my years, it's given me so much clarity on what matters, on what choices make sense, on what feels good and right to me, and to not have any regrets. I've said since my 20s that if I got hit by the bus tomorrow, I did what I needed with the time that I had. And that has been true just about every day of my life. There might have been some periods where I was feeling pretty stagnant or depressed and I wasn't making the most of each day. But for the most part, for 20 plus years, that has been true. And I can say that confidently because I ask myself the question regularly. How would you feel if today was your last day? What would you do differently? What could you still do to make sure that today was a great day if today was your last day? If today was your last day, would you do this or would you do this? If today was your last day, what would you miss? And if you miss it now, should you do something about it? That forces you to be honest with yourself about what you want, what you need, what feels good, what you are missing, what you would regret, what you love. And fundamentally, what you get is more awareness, more presence, more connection to yourself, and ideally, the world you exist in. But first and foremost, with yourself. And so mortality reflection is just it's a self-connection tool. It's a pathway into you better understanding yourself so that you don't need much time or information to make the choices that feel absolutely right for you. You don't have to deliberate too much. You don't have to stress the unknown too much. You can not only coexist, but even appreciate, be excited for uncertainty, the unknown. Because life is a massive adventure. It would be so boring if you knew everything that's going to happen. And the unknown and the uncertain is what makes life so magical. And we used to exist as humans in the world where that was a regular part of our existence. Not always exciting or not always fun, because it might threaten our lives and our survival. So I'm not saying that I want to go back to that time. But in this time, we've optimized out so much friction that the idea that we can make perfect choices, that we can avoid and control uncertainty, is a false sense of security. And so building that fearlessness, building your connection to your mortality, regularly giving yourself the space to consider it, gives you that portal into building a strong relationship with the unknown, with the fact that you will never know when you will go. So how are you going to live while you're here?